All right. It's about that time, so I'm going to go live. So, uh, anyway, I appreciate anyone that's out there that's tuning in. If you want to pop into the comments and say hi, that's all. That's always awesome to see. So maybe if you saw it before I switched over to the face-to-face kind of thing. I'm going to kind of do something similar to the last week. To be honest, I've really just been in this mood to paint, and I've been really exploring some different motifs, sort of an abstract flower kind of motif, and then this tree motif. And I've been kind of playing, actually, and kind of see one peeking over my shoulder. It's an acrylic painting that I don't know if it's finished, but I was working on it earlier today. But anyway, it's just these are the things that are kind of sparking my interest, and so that's kind of where my head is, and kind of what I want to focus on today. So anyway, like I said, I appreciate anybody that is tuning in, and like I said, if you want to pop into the comments and say hi, it's always great to see who's out there, and if you want to let us know where you're tuning in from. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive into it today. Let's get this switched over. All right, so I've got my mixed media paper, I've got some paint brushes, but I've got a different kind of paint this week. Like a lot of artists, you end up with a variety of supplies, materials, and today I'm going to be using the Core, Qor. It's a high quality watercolor paint made by Golden. So if you're familiar with Golden acrylics, so this set is light fast. It's very bright, and it's a true watercolor, not like the water soluble ink, the Inktense paints that I use quite a bit. So I think this set is it's a lot more expensive than some of the other sets I have. So I use it every once in a while, but I thought I'd go ahead and do a painting. This is a 6x8 inch piece of paper. The trick with this is that since it's in the pan, sometimes it's really hard to control the intensity and the darkness of the paint, because the water sits on top of the pan, sits on top of the color, and it just sort of softens the color and really makes it very bright, very, very vivid. So part of the thing I'm going to be doing today is trying to play around with that and try some different things. So I'll probably be mixing some color. I've got some places here I can mix, and I also have the lid up here, which is also a palette. So I think what I want to do today is a tree-like image, and this is something that I've been doing a lot of lately. So yeah, I'm gonna just trying to think what color I want to use. I think I'm gonna go ahead and use this orange here. And that's what's down here. So if I want to kind of control the intensity of the color, I can pick up some from the pan. That's, in case you don't know, that's what those little pieces are called. And each one's removable, so I can replace it. But I put it kind of just painted down here if I want a little bit more water. And then that way the water's not sitting on top of the pan and getting kind of darker and darker. So when I do these trees, I don't really care if it's a super realistic looking tree. It's more about the flow. I've been really kind of thinking about how things curve. I've got a nice big round brush. This is a number 10. The number 10, the numbers mean absolutely nothing. Depending on the brand, you can get another number 10 that's either smaller than this or bigger than this. But it's a nice round brush. It has a nice point to it. Same one that I used last week. But I'm kind of thinking about, just this sort of arc, and then having an arc go this way. So for me, it's just sort of okay, this is starting to create the basic shape of the tree, and I'm just kind of using arcs and then maybe one this way. And then, I mean, you can see the basic shape of it, but now what I want to do is I want to really make it thicker at the bottom, like it's really rooted. And just work on this size of it. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to hold this brush more straight up and down. And so then that way I can kind of use it back and forth. And I'm not laying it down, I'm just more up and down. Just seems to work. That way I can use the very tip of it if I want to get some thin lines, but then I can press harder and get some thick lines as well. So what I try to do is I try to have a little curve. I know, like, yeah, trees don't always have a little curve there. Sometimes it is a sharp point, but those of you that might know the web imagery that I use a lot actually grew out of painting a tree. This was years and years ago. And in one of my journals, I painted a tree using red paint, and I kind of curved all the little sharp corners, and it started looking more like blood vessels. And I just, that became like a type of imagery that I used a lot. So anyway, just trying to get the basic shape of it. Trying to make some things thick, some things thin. That's what I like about doing a tree shape, is that, you know, it's a tree, it grows and it can be kind of wonky. But like I said, I'm doing more of an abstracted tree, more stylized. More that one that has more of a flow. So I've got the main branches going. And now I want to go ahead and think about some of the branches that come off of it. And doing the morning paintings every day. I've been doing it now almost 8 weeks. Tomorrow will be 8 solid weeks that I've been doing them. And just really has got me back into painting and energized and jazzed up just to kind of paint. But what's been really interesting is that doing this has really helped me go in a different direction than a lot of my other mixed media stuff. So just kind of interesting to see that. Okay, so I like playing around a lot with the negative space on this. So I like this side to be a little bit bigger, the tree's leaning this way a little bit, so this space is a little bit smaller. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I want to have a branch that comes off of here and just curves out a little bit. This might need to be a little bit thicker down through here. And then I also want to do a little branch that comes off over here. So keeping the brush more vertical allows me just to have a smoother line as I paint. All right, so I like that shape. And let's go ahead and get into, I want to have a sun. This has been something that I've been doing. It's, it's a stylized, not supposed to be a real tree. So I like having kind of a sun shape behind there. Could be the sun, could be the moon, I guess, but this is going to be yellow. So I want to have that back there. The problem is that this yellow, right now it's got a little bit of green in it, but it is a very cool yellow. And so it's a very light, bright yellow. I don't remember the name of the color, but so I want to warm it up a little bit. And there is this golden color that's next to it. And this can be kind of a yellowish color, but if I mix the two, and just, the lid has these little dimples in it, these circles that you can probably see. If I want to, maybe I can just pick up a little bit of the orange. That way it's more of a yellowish orange, not such a cool, bright yellow. And so to me, this is the hardest part. So I don't sketch these out first. I did on that acrylic painting just because it's an acrylic. But with the watercolor, I want the white to be just left unpainted. And so last week when I did this, I did that kind of flower shape. I noticed that the circle was not very circular. Just like that's not very circular. That one's out a little bit too far. So if I make this a little bit bigger, okay, that might work. And so when I do this, I just try to leave a little bit of a space between and this is just something it may have been mentioning it last time if you tuned in, that I did because I was not in my studio and the paint was wet, and where I'd done a lot of layering and painting on top of colors and shapes, as part of my morning paintings, without having a hair dryer, not being in my studio, I was like, oh, well, I want to put a background in. And so I started painting it and leaving this halo around. And I really liked the look of it. So oftentimes we're used to a really dark, like thick, dark outline, sometimes in black, and especially thinking about things that are kind of cartoony. And I know a lot of the young kids that I teach always want to outline everything with Sharpie. And I think it's in part because that helps everything stand out, just really defines the shapes. But I really have been liking that look. I mean, it's a bit kind of reminds me of a mosaic and like the grout lines, but then also thinking about batik. And so batik is is where you're painting on fabric or dyeing fabric and you're using wax. So you use this little tool and you draw with the wax. And so if you start off with white fabric and you draw with the wax, you end up with these white lines around the colors. And you can do a whole series and dipping in different dyes and things. I've never actually done it, but kind of the basic process. but can definitely kind of has that bit of a feel to it. Okay, so now I want to do a light blue background. And the blue I have is here. And I actually have two. One is an ultramarine blue, and the blue I want to use is phthalo blue. Phthalo blue is that really bright blue. And the problem is that sometimes it's a bit much. So I'm trying to get some of the pigment, putting it up in this big well. And then I just want to add a bunch of water to it. So if I used it straight off of the paint pan, it could be just way, way too dark. I mean, it looks dark on the video, but it's actually very bright. And let's see what it looks like. I think I may have splattered a little bit all the way over there. I don't know if you can see, there's a couple little blue spots. So I can control the intensity and the value of the paint by how much water is in it. So if there's more water and less pigment, it's going to lighten it up a lot. And that's exactly what I wanted to do, just have more of a light blue. And because I mixed it in the well, I know it's all going to be pretty much that same value, that same intensity. And like I said before, if I used it straight off the pan, it would be much, much darker and a little bit harder to control. So this paint is a high quality paint. It's light fast. So it's definitely something that I would use. So, you know, after I'm done with this painting, if it's something that I feel like, oh, I want to hang on the wall, or if I want to sell it, definitely the right kind of paint. Now, light fast does not mean that, you know, I can keep it exposed to bright light. Usually there's different levels of light fastness. And I think a 1 means that it's the most light fast. And I believe that is that it will not fade for 100 years underneath museum lighting conditions. So, you know, very controlled conditions. But, you know, if I'm going to frame this and hang it on the wall, I'd probably put it underneath some glass. And especially if I used a glass that would block out the UV rays, because it's the ultraviolet light that really lightens the colors, yeah, it's going to be fine. That's something that some folks just don't know about or don't really understand. It's like not all art materials are going to stay nice and bright and vivid. I mean, even this, it's like where it's starting to dry already, it looks much lighter than it does when it's wet, but that's like all watercolor does that. And so I'm just using a smaller brush. This is a smaller round brush. It's a number 2. So it just has a nice thin point, allows me to get in where I want to. And then I like to use it as I go around. Gives me a lot of control. Now I will say that I am guilty of using this little brush to paint in really big areas. But I am going to use this brush. Now the thing is, this is getting used up, so kind of getting the same color, that's going to be the tricky part. All right, let's see if I can paint around this with the big brush. I mean, this big brush comes to a nice point. But I find that sometimes I don't have the control like I do with the little brush. All right, so yeah, so I think I'm going to call this one done. Just I like how simple it is. The one of the big things that I struggle with is I often overdo things, or at least I feel like I do. So voting and it can really take a long time, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not trying to suggest that like the quicker you could do something, the better it is, the better it is. But uh, it's just that sometimes I feel like I overdo, and I just keep working and building and adding and doing all this stuff to it. And so sometimes um, trying to trying to give trying to make myself like simplify things. And so that's one of the benefits of doing this daily kind of thing, is that it it really allowed me to kind of start to simplify my approach and just kind of get into working with some simple shapes and simple colors. So it's been kind of an interesting thing, and I think that's why I'm really fascinated with it, because it's a very different process. So anyway, but yeah, Bonnie mentioned in the comments here on Facebook that yeah, brushes have different numbers, and the smaller ones, I think the smaller brushes give you a sense of control. I find that especially whenever I'm teaching, especially students, that like little kids want to always use the biggest brushes, and then they try to like paint little details in with them, and it doesn't work. And then the older kids, a lot of them want to use the smallest brushes, and it's like, okay, you have the smallest brush, but you're painting in this, 2 foot painting, and it's like, so that's why they make different sizes. But it's fun. I've been using a lot this big brush this big number 10 round brush. I've been trying to use that a lot. And I mean, there for a while with my daily paintings, that's the only brush I would use. And so it was just really interesting to kind of do everything with that. But anyway, so today is just kind of another quick little thing, but just a different take on some of the stuff that I've been doing. Anyway, I really appreciate you tuning in. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please pop them in the comments and I'll try to get back to them. But anyway, just appreciate you being here, appreciate you tuning in. And hey, and if you like this video, make sure you share it. Let folks know, say, hey, check this guy out. Anyway, but anyway, so I will pop back in probably next week and I'll catch you then. So thank you so much and happy creating.